Everyone, good afternoon. Thank you so much for being here today. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Janet Martyr. I'm the senior rabbi here at Beth Am. Today's program is brought to you by the Green Team of Beth Am, which has been created to educate our congregation, to raise awareness about climate change, and to move us all towards clean, green, sustainable forms of energy. And this program today is part of that overall effort. We are very pleased to be working in partnership today with Actera, Action for a Healthy Planet. And our presentation today will be given by Ariane Erickson, who's project manager. She is responsible for their EV program, working to accelerate the usage of electric vehicles in the Bay Area. Before she gives her presentation, I do want to acknowledge and thank and give the microphone for a moment to a member of our Green Team, Nicole Kemeny, who is herself an environmental activist, a member of our congregation, and she's the one who really made sure that this program came to fruition, came up with the idea, and worked with Actera to bring it to Beth Am. And I know she wants to deliver a little message on behalf of our Green Team. So, Nicole.
Thank you. It'll be short, don't worry. Thank you all for actually showing up on a gorgeous Sunday. I'm really impressed with how many people are here. This is maybe the biggest turnout that Actera has had at an EV workshop, I think. It's fantastic. Anyway, so Congregation Beth Am has grasped the ring and is going to get active and working on climate. And this is a really great program because electric vehicles, as you'll hear, are a very important piece of the puzzle. And one of the major things that people can do to do their part is to drive an electric vehicle. And so look out, gas and oil companies, because Beth Am is taking you on. Thank you all for coming. I think you'll learn a lot about how important electric vehicles are in California, where transportation makes up a large percentage, 40% of the greenhouse gas emissions in the state. So it's a very important chunk. In addition to getting active with some kind of an environmental group in order to make your voice heard to decision makers that have the ability to improve our public policies and our energy use. So this is the other really big thing that you can do. Also, they're super fun to drive, especially if you enjoy accelerating. So maybe sometime you'll get to test drive and then you'll know what I mean. I'd like to hand over the microphone. Yes.
So we're also looking for ideas from our members and from folks in the community if you'd like to be part of the Green Team, or if you have ideas for other ways we can educate and mobilize our community. Please be in touch with me, and then I'll forward it to the Green Team. So rabbi_martyr@betham.org, or just call us up here, and we'll be happy to work in partnership with you. And now, Ariane Erickson.
Thanks. Jane, did you want to say something about the Green Team?
Just that I encourage you definitely to reach out and be part of that. We'll probably meet once a month, and we're just really activist-oriented, but something that you can handle. Thank you.
Okay, so let's get started with the presentation component. It will last about 40 minutes, including questions and answers. There's some snacks back there. And let's talk first of all about Actera. My name is Ariane Erickson, as Rabbi Martyr said, and I run Actera's Carl Knapp Go EV program. It was recently rebranded to honor Carl Knapp, who was a Stanford professor and an EV advocate and an all-around Earth champion. And so we're just delighted that we are continuing his legacy. It's been about a year since we've branded it under the Carl Knapp banner, and he even has an emoji, so you'll see the emoji on some of our materials as well. And then Actera is actually just down the road in Palo Alto. We're a nonprofit environmental organization, and our current focus is on climate change and educating Bay Area residents about what they can do to combat climate change, because we feel it is really one of the most urgent issues of our time. And that is how the electric vehicle program got started. because the transportation sector, which we'll talk about a little bit later, is really one of the largest contributors to climate change. All right, so let's get started here. Just a brief overview about what is an electric vehicle. So this is a little diagram that shows different components. So if you see the red components of this car, those should look pretty familiar to you because those are the components that are inside a traditional gas-powered car. You've got the gas tank, you have to fill it, and it drives a combustion engine, burns fuel, and that's what makes the wheels move. Conversely, an electric vehicle has only the green parts. So it has a port here where you plug it into a household plug or an EV charger, and that charges the battery. This is actually not really to scale. The battery usually runs all the way across the bottom of the car, and the battery charges an electric motor, and that's what propels the wheels. There's a third type of electric vehicle, which is called a plug-in hybrid. And plug-in hybrids have both the red and the green pieces. And then actually, finally, there is a conventional hybrid vehicle, and those are the ones that have been around for a long time. The most popular example is the Toyota Prius. Those originally did not have ports to plug in, but they included both of these pieces, and the battery is pretty small on conventional hybrids, and so it actually gets to be recharged by the combustion engine. They're not large enough to need an external power source. So there is a little bit of a difference between a conventional hybrid and a plug-in hybrid. All right, so that's a brief overview. So now we want to get into the benefits of electric vehicles. So why go EV? There's many, many reasons that a person can go EV. Of course, one of the most obvious reasons to switch from gas-powered vehicles to electric vehicles are that you would eliminate a lot of pollution. I think we're all aware that gas-powered vehicles emit particulate matter, which causes soot and smog, carbon monoxide, all sorts of other pollutants that go into the air and that are very harmful to our health. Especially the particulate matter, which lodges deep inside of our lungs and causes lung problems, lung cancer, other types of cancer, asthma. The list goes on and on. So really, for health reasons, this is really one of the #1 reasons that we recommend switching to electric vehicles. We'll clean our skies. And as you probably know, the people that are most adversely affected by this pollution are children and the elderly. So that's one of the first reasons that we encourage EV adoption. Now, we are an environmental organization, and as I mentioned, our focus is on helping fight climate change. So really, for Actera, switching to electric vehicles is really what we think is one of the most important and really one of the biggest things that any individual can do to combat climate change. This is a graph from 2016. It's a pie chart, excuse me. And it shows the different sectors where California's emissions come from, carbon dioxide emissions. And what's been happening lately is that these two blue pieces, that's electricity generation, those traditionally have been a very large piece of the carbon pie because traditionally we've gotten our electricity from fossil fuels, such as burning coal, natural gas. However, in California, and particularly here in the Bay Area, we have now very aggressively moved towards clean energy. Probably most of us are members of a community choice aggregation entity, such as Peninsula Clean Energy, or Silicon Valley Clean Energy, or even the city of Palo Alto, which owns its own utility, is now sourcing carbon-free energy. So what is happening is, in California, and especially in the Bay Area, this slice of the carbon pie that is generated by electricity is shrinking. It's getting smaller and smaller. And while that's happening, the carbon emissions from the transportation sector, that slice of the pie is actually getting larger and larger. And a large part of these transportation emissions come from passenger vehicles. So we really want to work on addressing this piece of the carbon pie. This actually is a chart of the state of California, and it says 41% of emissions come from transportation here in the Bay Area. Because we have so much clean electricity, it's upwards of 60% or more. So we're really trying to address that source of carbon emissions with our Go EV program. Okay, this is a really neat graphic. It shows at the bottom, this is your traditional gas-powered car, and then it has a gigantic bubble here. This represents the amount of carbon emissions that this car produces over the course of 1 year. And the dollar sign on the left, which is rather large, is the cost to operate this vehicle, to fuel and maintain it. Conversely, if you were to switch to a plug-in hybrid, that's the blue vehicle, you'll see that you'll reduce your carbon emissions significantly, and the dollar sign gets smaller because it's less expensive to fuel and maintain. And finally, if you look here, if you go 100% electric, your carbon emissions shrinks way, way down compared to this large gray piece, and your dollar sign goes down too, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more. So, you can see the advantages of going EV. And let's delve a little bit now into the difference in cost of ownership. Electricity is cheaper than gas to power your car. It's about 1/3 the price of gas. So this is a really neat calculator that I found. Nissan Leaf produces it, but there's other calculators that you can use. So what this is doing is it is comparing a 2019 Nissan Leaf versus a 2019 Toyota Corolla, which is a pretty fuel-efficient vehicle. It gets about 36 miles per gallon. So what I did here was I plugged in the Toyota Corolla's miles per gallon. I plugged in $3.90 for gas. I'm not exactly sure if that's relevant because I own an EV and I don't go get gas anymore, but you can tell me if I'm right or wrong. It allows you to plug in your daily commute, which I put is about 30 miles. Electricity rate, I used PG&E's electric vehicle rate of 13 cents per kilowatt hour, and I said, let's say we own the vehicle for 10 years. So then it does this nifty calculation, and it shows you if you own the Nissan Leaf for 10 years, you're going to save about $7,500, which equals about $750 per year. Now, I used to own a Toyota Sienna, minivan, and that, my gas mileage was about, I think I got 20 miles per gallon. So I actually am saving probably over $10,000 a year by going electric. Okay, so another way that you're going to save money is on maintenance. Electric vehicles have 10 times fewer moving pieces underneath the hood than traditional gas-powered cars. They're very, very simple underneath the hood. So, there's none of this. You do not have to get oil changes. You don't have to get a biannual smog check. There's no spark plugs. There's no air filters to change, timing belts, radiators, mufflers. One of these things, I don't even know what that is, but electric vehicles don't have that. They have very few moving pieces underneath the hood. So there's very few pieces that are going to break down or need to be replaced. Okay, this next slide I think is one of my favorites. This is you in an electric vehicle. And that's everybody else. So let's talk about this. One reason that people go EV is to have access to the carpool lanes. So what you do is you have to purchase a new vehicle and you submit an application. I think it costs $22. And then in a few weeks' time, you should get one of these purple stickers. The other colors are a little bit older, and it's something to keep in mind for if you purchase a used vehicle. If you purchase a used vehicle and it happens to have a blue or a green sticker, you need to know the white sticker is actually expired and you can't go use the carpool lane if you have that one. The green sticker is also retired, but if you got this decal after January 1st of 2017, you can actually upgrade to a red. The red decal is valid until January 1st, 2022. And the most recent one, which you will get if you fill out the form, is valid until January 1st, 2023. So we don't know how much longer these privileges are going to last. So if getting access to the carpool lane is important to you, then I would definitely take advantage of this program while it lasts. Okay, so we've talked about the difference in price, the difference to fuel, the environmental benefits, the health benefits, but we haven't talked about actually driving these vehicles. And that's really one of the biggest benefits of going EV. You really, you have to get inside one of these vehicles and get behind the wheel and drive one to see simply how fun they are to drive. So I'd say most people that get inside an electric vehicle, they have this kind of reaction the first time they drive it. And it's as you know, it's a very quiet ride. It's a very smooth, fast acceleration. And they handle well, and they simply are a better ride. Okay, so with all of these benefits to electric vehicles, why not go EV? I'd like to actually ask you that, and maybe have some of you raise your hand or just shout out, what would your concern be? Why would you not go EV? Charging time.
Distance driven.
Distance driven. What does that mean?
Or how far can you go?
Range.
And infrastructure.
Infrastructure. Can an EV get me where I need to go? Are there going to be charging stations when I need one? What else?
Long-term reliability.
Long-term reliability. Is my battery going to fade out on me? Yeah. The ability to travel long trips in an electric vehicle? Okay, great. These are all valid questions. And, you know, a lot of these questions I had myself before I went EV. So let's try and address all of them. And if I don't get to them, you can come to me afterwards and ask me again. All right. So the biggest question that people usually have is about range, because it's a whole different paradigm of fueling your car. So I'm going to actually bring up one of our EV ambassadors, Greg Bell. He's the person that you may have seen in the parking lot giving a demo of the charging, of how to charge a car. And he's actually going to explain the different levels of charging and how to charge an electric vehicle.
Can you, Ariane, can you hold this up for me?
Yeah, sure.
So how many people have plugged in an electric car? Who's plugged in an electric car? So about a third, okay. So this is called level 1 charger. This is a J-plug. J-plug plugs in the front of your car. This charger is level 1, it's 120 volts, and it has a connection that you'll have in your house anywhere, right? Standard connection, grounded. This gives about 3 to 4 miles of range per hour of charge. So that's called level 1. And you get one of these with every car. Every car has one that looks similar to this, okay? And that's a small amount of power going into your car. 3 to 4 miles per hour is not a huge amount. Okay. Do we all stand up and salute? So this one is a little larger. This one has more energy coming through. Let me hand it over to Ariane. This is called level 2. Level 2 is the one we're seeing in the middle here. This is the home unit. This is a unit that would be somewhere commercial, somewhere out at a shopping center or in a parking garage, level 2. So level 2 gives 20 to 25 miles of charge per hour. So when you have level 2, you can go a lot, for your range gets extended. Your ability to put power into your car quickly gets extended. So you need to have an electrician wire level 2 with one of these. This is 240 volts. So electrician comes along, connects this to your circuit breaker box, and then you plug in. Or you can use a dryer outlet. Similar, they're both 240 volts. So that's level 2, and has the same plug. So it has the same J plug, okay? And it has a different connection. You can see that this is way larger than the 120 volt. Okay? You can come up and take a look at these afterwards if you want, if you haven't seen them out in the parking lot. So that's level 2, that's what the connection looks like. And then level 3 is this is 20 to 25 miles of range per hour. So level 3 is more commercial. They stand about this tall, so you'll see them in shopping centers or maybe in parking garages, And that one will give over 100 miles of range per hour of charge. So when people are wondering about range, if I'm going to LA, there's an app that lets you know where these are located, and you could charge there quickly, go get a meal or such, charge for a half hour, depending how much charge you need, and then continue on to LA, which is a question that many people have. So what other questions about chargers? Yes?
Is there an advantage for the battery? At which level gives you optimal battery life?
Which level of charge give you optimal? So the idea, this is, I'll just briefly, we can talk offline a little bit. Level 2 is what you can have, well, this one, or this commercially located, is a nice sweet spot because it doesn't overheat your battery. Some cars, they don't like the battery getting too hot. This works really well. The newer cars are having liquid cooled batteries, which it's not a problem anymore. So really, it's more about the dollars. So when you have a charger like this one, this level 2 at home, you're charging with the lowest amount of dollars into your car because it's actually your account, and you're not. There's no one else who's billing you. It's basically going into your PG&E account or your Palo Alto account. So yes, question. You can. This. Oh, sure. Can you?
Let's use the microphone for questions so that everybody can hear.
So she was asking,
Hello?
can you use your dryer outlet? And you can. The plug would look a little different than this, but you can plug into your dryer outlet. Yeah. Another question in the back?
And then let's just wait for the microphone to get to you before you ask
Maybe in the
anything.
back would be great.
Across all of North America, are there chargers every place?
There are chargers in many, many locations, yeah. Ariane's going to show the next slide, which will show a visual of chargers in the Bay Area, and it's also true across the U.S.
And what's the potential for having a charger installed here at Bethel?
Well, let's see. Who can answer that question? We'll work on that. Who's responsible for that? Raise your hand. Someone's hand must go up about that.
The green team.
The green team. Who's on the green team? You're on the green team. Okay. So she's the person you can talk to. Okay. Yes.
Well, you had your attention when you just mentioned about the level 2. Isn't it the case that if they put it into their dryer, they will also need an adapter?
Yeah. The connection here would look different. Yeah.
Right, to
Either
just
it-
make that clear, because that's a little bit of an extra expense.
Yeah. The adapter would you would either change that cable there, or you would put an adapter on this. But yeah, it would look a little different than that. Any other
Yeah,
questions?
I've got the mic back here.
He's
So,
the guy in charge.
relative to charging speed, this is really critical for almost everyone. And I would like to know why it is that Elon Musk forbids his own Tesla owners who are using their car as a Lyft car or as an Uber car or any taxis that are his cars. He forbids them from using the rapid charger. Why is that?
You know, I can't answer for Elon Musk.
Well,
He's quite
I have a
he's-
theory.
He's quite.
Yeah, my theory is that it will reduce the lifespan of the battery because it overheats the battery.
Well, we'll talk offline about that. But a liquid-cooled battery doesn't overheat. So, another question. If you want, see me afterwards, and we can talk a little more about that. Yes.
Yes. Question is, when you pull into one of these superchargers or one of the commercial chargers,
Yes.
is there a charge for that? Do they ask for a credit card to pay for that?
Well, superchargers can be free. I'm not exactly sure. Is it for everyone who has a Tesla?
It's not. They kind of go back and forth on their policy. For the first couple of years, Tesla superchargers were free, and then they started charging. And now I think they want to boost the sales of the S's and the X's, and so they've brought back free supercharging for S's and X's for who knows how long. Greg, do you want to talk about how you pay for the
Yeah.
other ones?
So your question, if you're going to some location that uses non-Tesla, which is proprietary, but this one, JPlug, J-plug chargers, right? These are all J-plug chargers. This connection. Yeah, there'd be a fee for that if you're not at your home. At your home, it's your account. You're paying the lowest amount. You go somewhere else, and there's going to be some fee for that.
Do you have a price range for that?
Does anyone have a price range? Yeah. Give a microphone.
Yes, it's usually anything from, like at Stanford, it's about $1 an hour at some places, and it's $2 an hour at others. And in the city's garages in Palo Alto, it's about $1.53 for about an hour and a half.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So you're going to pay the lowest amount. So you pay the lowest amount at home. I equate it to like if you go to the grocery store and you pick up food and you're going to cook at home, you're going to pay the lowest amount. If you go to a restaurant and someone's serving you, you're going to pay more. So, makes sense.
What about availability when you get to the place where all the chargers are? Are they all taken typically? How busy are they?
It depends. Yeah, it depends. You could be. I see him shaking his head. Yes. It could be that there are people waiting to charge. That there might be someone parked there. It's a real thing. I usually think that I charge at home and I leave home with as much energy as I need for the day. And then if I'm going on a longer trip, then I count on there might be some inconvenience there. But you will be able to find a charge.
And let me just add to that, actually, 80% of all EV owners charge their cars at home. That's where you're going to be doing most of your charging. Also, as an EV driver for the past 4.5 years, I have rarely experienced a situation where I've pulled up to a bank of chargers and haven't been able to find one.
Okay.
I have a mic.
If I can just add to that.
There's a lot of people want to talk about this.
So ChargePoint has an app. Tesla, the app is right on your screen. And you can bring up on the app where you're going to, and it'll tell you not only the charger, but it'll tell you the availability, so whether there's a wait or not. So
Yeah.
you can find all that out before you even get there.
Yeah. So good point. Thank you, John. Yeah, you can also go to Google Maps and just type in EV charger near me, and you'll get every brand of charger available that's close by. So.
And also, can we talk just a tiny bit to address your question about, so how do you get an account? How do you pay for one of these things? Okay, so with Tesla, the car communicates directly with the charger, and you don't have to do anything. So you just back into the charging station, you plug it in, and the car and the charging station handle all of that. So if you do all the other types of makes and models, you actually have to sign up with each one of these vendors, and there's about 3 vendors in the area. There's soon to be a 4th vendor. ChargePoint is one of the well-known vendors. EVgo is another popular vendor. There's another vendor called Blink. It was very early on that Blink came onto the scene, and they're kind of fading out right now. But Electrify America is another vendor that is actually building a lot of fast charging stations in the Bay Area, and they should come online very quickly. So you do have to open up accounts with each of these vendors. They'll usually send you a fob card. I think Greg held one in his hand. Those are the cards that you just hold up to the reader, and then they do the rest. And then they unlock the charging cord, and you can plug it in. Hi, Jim. Jim back there is one of our EV ambassadors, and he's holding an example of a fob card. Now, he also works for ChargePoint. So correct me if I'm wrong, Jim, but I think fob cards are going to go away. Now you can actually download the app for ChargePoint, and you just kind of hold it up to the machine, and magically it unlocks the thing for you. And then after that point, very soon, all the other makes and models are going to have software inside of them that will enable you to do it the same way that Tesla does it, where the car just automatically communicates with the charger. You do have to have an account, though, because they have to know how to charge you, and that's going to happen fairly soon.
Okay. Good. Let me just quickly mention that so Jim works for ChargePoint. I actually don't work for ChargePoint, but I've had a ChargePoint charger on my wall since 2011, and I've never not been able to charge. It's always worked. So that's why I have a ChargePoint up here, because I know it's a good product. Another question?
I have another question about home charging, and that is there a way to gauge comparable efficiency between a 110 and a 220?
240 you're saying?
Or 240.
Comparable efficiency, meaning?
I mean, my car takes 16 hours to get 50 miles, And because we have 110, and I don't know how much it's costing me. Would it be more cost effective to do it with the 240, which has an upfront cost?
Oh, I see. So you would pay the same amount of money for the amount of charge called a kilowatt hour. That's the measurement that goes into your battery. It just comes in slower. With the 120, it's just coming in slower than the 240. And Jim, who knows way more than I do about this, will tell you a little more about that.
I'm a little bit of an electrical geek, and so when the car is charging, there's a lot of electronics that are kind of operating during that process. So the longer the car is taking to charge, all that electronic equipment is running. So you will gain a roughly a 3 to 5% you'll gain about 3 to 5% efficiency by going to 240. So it's I mean, no, will the 240 volt charger pay for itself with that? No, it'll take forever. But if speed is important at any time, then you would want to do that. But otherwise, it's marginally efficient, more efficient.
The big gain's going to be 240. The thing you're going to get is a lot more energy in your battery quicker. So how about one more question? Anyone else who wants to talk to me afterwards, I'll do that. But who has? I see 2 there. I see 3 there. Yikes.
Greg will hang out afterwards and answer more questions.
But how about one more to this lady right there?
So if you want the more efficient charger, how much does that cost to put that in your home? If you're not using your home hookup, you're putting a new charger in, how much is that cost?
So you're saying when you wire one of these,
Yeah.
So in most cases, it's around $1,000 to $1,500, depending on what your electrician charges and how far the distance is that you need to come from your electrical panel to where this is mounted on the wall. So it's in that range. And the good thing you get there is you get a fueling station, sort of an electrical fueling station that will work with your car you have now, cars in the future, and electricity costs you 1/3 as much to power your car as it does gas. So for every 100 miles you go down the road, it'll cost you 1/3 as much as gasoline costs. So.
And the level 2 chargers for your home, they run between $500 and $700. You can order them off of Amazon. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about charging, because I know that range, it really is one of the big issues. Like I said, 80% of the time you're going to charge your car at home, but when you need to charge your car on the road, you will probably, at some point in your EV career, you will look up plugshare.com to find an EV charger that you can use while you're on the road. So it's going to pull up in your area all of these little teardrops, and the different colors represent the different levels that are available. So this is the Bay Area. There's a lot of charging infrastructure here, and as I said, even more is coming online every day. The orange teardrops represent level 3 chargers, and those are the ones that charge you up the fastest. Really, people end up using the level 3 chargers generally when they are taking road trips. So that addresses your question about traveling to Los Angeles, for example. Those are going to be the occasions that you're going to use these DC fast chargers. The green teardrops represent level 2 chargers. Those are the ones that Greg was talking about, and they're located just about everywhere. Public libraries, shopping centers, anywhere where you're going to spend at least an hour of time is usually where you'll see a level 2 charger. And then this is very interesting. If you become a member of PlugShare, if you sign up and get an account, you can actually list your home charger on here if you're willing to let somebody else use it if they're in a pinch. Pretty cool. There's also a couple of companies that are coming online that say that they're the Airbnb of EV charging. There's one called EV Match. There's a new one called Amp Up. And their model is that, similar to these blue dots, if you have an EV charger, you want to make a little extra money, then you can actually rent out your charger. And some of these services actually let you reserve the charger in advance, so you know for sure that it's going to be available. And then just wanted to talk about a really fun program called Drive the Arc. There's a manufacturer called EVgo, which has set up a number of level 3 charging stations from Santa Cruz all the way to Lake Tahoe. And in this pilot period, they are letting you charge your car for free. You have to have a CHAdeMO port in order to do that. There's 2 different kinds of ports, so you'd have to know which type of port your car has if you wanted to take advantage of that bonus benefit. Okay, so let's talk about cost. The government has very generous rebates if you purchase a new electric vehicle. First of all, there is a $7,500 federal tax credit that you can get if you purchase a new electric vehicle. So the way that works is if you were to purchase a Kia Soul next week, when it comes time to do your taxes next year, you can apply for the $7,500 federal tax credit, and the $7,500 reduces your tax liability by that amount. So it's equal to reducing the cost of the car by $7,500. Keep in mind that it's only if you purchase an electric vehicle. You don't necessarily get this rebate if you're leasing, because if you're leasing, it's actually the financial arm of the automobile manufacturer that is technically the owner, and they're the ones that actually get to take that rebate, although you can negotiate to see if you can get back some of that rebate. So in addition to the federal tax credit, the state of California is very aggressively promoting electric vehicles. And for several years now, they've offered an additional $2,500 if you purchase or lease an electric vehicle. And the way that happens is once you drive your new vehicle home, you go on the website, you fill out a form, and in a few weeks' time, you get sent a check for $2,500. So that's immediate cash in hand. Also, if you can income qualify, if you're low or fixed income, according to this chart, the state of California will give you an additional $2,000 for a total of $4,500. Okay, so with those rebates, actually, let me talk about a couple of other rebates. If you are a PG&E customer, once you drive your vehicle home, you can again fill out a form online, send it in, and they will send you a check for $800. If you are a resident of the city of Santa Clara, you can do the same thing, and I can't remember how much that is. I think it's $750 that they will give you. So, now that we've talked about fuel maintenance and rebates, let's take a real-life example to see actually how the costs play out. This is a Fiat 500e. You may have seen one of these in the parking lot. They also produce a traditional gas-powered version, so this is a really good car to make this comparison. So this, the top line is the Fiat 500e, and it's the cost of ownership over 5 years, and ends up being about $35,000. Conversely, the same vehicle as a gas-powered car is going to cost about $41,500 over the course of 5 years. And here's how it plays out. The green bars represent the initial cost of ownership, the initial purchase price. So you can see that even with the rebates, an electric vehicle will be slightly more expensive than its traditional gas-powered counterpart. But where you save the most money is when you get to the fueling. This red bar represents the amount of money you spend on electricity over the course of 5 years. And conversely, this black bar for the gas-powered car is how much you're going to spend on gas. So you can see the difference is very significant. Additionally, we talked about maintenance. This dark blue box right here is the maintenance that you'll have on your Fiat 500e, the electric version, twice as much for a gas-powered car. And insurance ends up being about the same. So when you take all those factors into consideration, the Fiat 500e is $6,605 cheaper to own over 5 years' time. Okay. Yes, question. Can we get a microphone back there? Can you raise your hand again?
What does maintenance on an electric vehicle amount to?
That's a good question. Once you purchase your EV, you kind of become a member of this club that likes to it's kind of an inside joke. If people lease a car, usually it's a 3-year lease, we like to say that in the 3 years' time that I've leased my car, I've had to change my windshield wipers. I mean, that's a running joke of EV owners because really the maintenance is that minimal. There's no oil change. Oh, you have to rotate your tires. Put air in your tires. But it really, because they are so simple underneath the hood, there's just not that much that can go wrong. What is that?
Lubrication.
That I don't know, but maybe one of my ambassadors can. None. None of that. Water for the windshield wipers. I mean, we're talking simple things. It's really incredible. I've had an electric vehicle for 5 years, and I think there was one small recall that I had to bring it in for, and my windshield wipers. Okay. So now let's talk about used purchase options. So a lot of electric vehicles are coming off lease right now because it's a popular thing to do with electric vehicles since the battery technology is improving so rapidly. People like to lease the car because they know in 3 years' time the next iteration is going to have a longer range. So a lot of people choose to lease their cars, and so after 3 years' time, a lot of them are coming off lease. And so I just did a quick look up on Craigslist. This Chevy Spark here, it's a very small car. It has an 84-mile range. It's a great car for your teenage driver. You can get it for about $8,000. The Chevy Volt is another fantastic car. It's a plug-in hybrid. They actually just discontinued it, which is really a shame because it really had the longest range of any plug-in hybrid. It got 53 miles before it kicked into gas. But GM decided that they weren't going to pursue it anymore, so now you can only buy one used. And I looked, and 2015 model is about $16,000. All right, and then we have the tried and true Nissan Leaf. A 2016 model goes for between $12,000 and $14,000. Now, if you're considering a Nissan Leaf, here's something that you actually need to be aware of if you're purchasing used. The Leaf has been around for a long time. It was really the first electric vehicle in the modern age. And so it's been around since, I think, 2010. And every couple of years, the range increases. So if you're looking to buy used, you really need to pay attention to the model year because it's going to have a specific range. So that's something that you need to be aware of. Okay. So let's talk about some of the makes and models that are currently available in the Bay Area. This is a select list. We do have a fantastic brochure that it looks like maybe we're out, but I can email you a link to, which has all the available makes and models right now. But let's just highlight a couple of them. So now that the Volt has been discontinued, the car that has the second longest range as a plug-in hybrid is the Honda Clarity. It gets 48 miles before it kicks into its gasoline engine, and then it gives you an extra 292 miles. Another plug-in hybrid that you might consider if you really want a lot of passenger and cargo space is the Chrysler Pacifica plug-in hybrid. It actually gets a pretty healthy 32 miles before it kicks into gas, and then an additional 488 miles if you're running it on gasoline. And then, of course, we have all of the Teslas. We've got the Model 3, the Model S, and the Model X. These are the ones that get the highest range. They're also a little bit more expensive. We have the tried and true Nissan Leaf that has a 150-mile range. And this one I really want to highlight. I actually own a Kia Soul. The 2019 model gets a 111-mile range, but the 2020 model that's coming out very soon is going to get a huge increase in range. It's going to have 243 miles. Because of its boxy shape, it has big passenger and cargo room, and it's a really fantastic car. Just a couple other things to say about the BMW i3. Free charging for 2 years, and also for the Nissan Leaf. Oh, actually, let's talk just a tiny bit about the Chevy Bolt. The 2019 was a game changer. It really was one of the first cars that had over 200-mile range. And the 2020 model, which is coming out soon, perhaps by the end of this year, is going to have a little bump up in range to 259 miles. You actually want to counter that with the fact that GM has reached their limit in terms of the federal tax credit. What happens is the manufacturers are allowed to sell up to 200,000 electric vehicles, and after that, the federal tax credit that you can claim on that particular brand gets reduced over the course of a year, maybe a year and a half. So the Chevy Bolt has actually maxed out. They've sold over 200,000. So the federal tax credit is actually phasing out for the Bolt. So right now it's at $3,750, and on October 1st it's going to go down to $1,875. So that's something to consider. If you want to get as much of the tax credit as possible, then you're going to want to purchase it before October 1st. Jane, do you have something to add?
Just to counter that, there's a bill that's been introduced in California to raise the incentive from California to 3 times as much as what it is now, so $7,500. That's in pending right now.
That's fantastic. And then also just another note about the Teslas. They also are in their phase-out period, and right now the federal tax credit for those is $1,875, and that phases out completely by December 31st. Something to keep in mind. Okay, so let's talk about these new arrivals. New kids on the block. We have some subcompact SUVs that have recently come out. The Hyundai Kona is not super available, but it seems like a fantastic car. It gets 258-mile range. The Kia Niro you might be seeing on the streets because that's a little bit more available. It's popular because it is an SUV, albeit a small one, and it has a 238-mile range. And then, when you're shopping, if you decide to go for a Nissan Leaf, you should know that they have now just released the Nissan Leaf Plus. You have to be careful. You have to look for that plus, and that distinguishes it from the Nissan Leaf regular, which now has a range of 226 miles. Okay, so EVs are coming. This is something that is happening. The momentum is building, especially here in California, especially here in the Bay Area. I just wanted to show you that the future is bright for EVs. This is a chart that shows projected annual global electric vehicle sales. Now, we're way down here right now. However, they are projecting that by 2040, we're going to have a massive, massive widespread adoption of electric vehicles. And it's interesting to show you that the red represents China. They are actually the largest producer and consumer of electric vehicles. This is the United States, the blue bar right here. Pretty good, not so bad. Although Germany, it looks like, is probably going to beat us with their adoption rates. Now let's look at United States. So here's various cities, and it shows their adoption rates. I don't know if you can read this, but the higher up the circle, the higher the adoption rate. And so way down there in the corner, we have Minneapolis and Pittsburgh and Miami. Then Seattle is getting higher. Portland, Los Angeles, and San Diego has a pretty good adoption rate. Atlanta, and look at San Francisco, way, way, way up there. And just going a little bit more micro level, this is a chart of Bay Area cities. And Palo Alto is really the leader of the leaders. This is from 2017. 1 out of every 3 new cars purchased in Palo Alto was an electric vehicle. Yay! But you know, we should clap for all of the Bay Area cities. So if you see Milpitas, you know, it looks as though it's the bottom of the pack, but it's really not. It has about a 12 or 13% EV adoption rate. That's compared to the 2017 US average of 1%. So the Bay Area is doing fantastic. All right, so let's talk about next steps in your process of adopting an electric vehicle. There's two fantastic online matchmaking tools. The Sierra Club offers one. You just pick a plug-in, and it should pull up the matchmaking tool. PG&E has one as well if you plug in EV Match. And they ask you questions like, well, what's your commute? Do you have access to a charger? How many passenger seats do you want to have, et cetera, et cetera. And based on your answers, they will come up with a list of suggested electric vehicles. Really, really handy tools. The other thing, if you are getting ready to purchase or lease an electric vehicle, is you're going to want to look at this website. It's down at the bottom, evvinblogspot.com. Actually, it's if you're interested in leasing an electric vehicle. So this guy, every week, he scopes out the best deals on electric vehicle leases throughout the country. So you want to, if you look at this, you have to make sure that you're looking at the Northern California lease deals. And this is a really good tool to use if you have a little bit of time and you don't need to buy your EV immediately. You can kind of keep looking at this list every week. This is what I did over the course of a couple of months, and once I spotted a fantastic deal on a Kia Soul, I jumped.
So, could you repeat what that website is?
Yes. The website is EV-VIN. That's actually the person's name I just learned. So EV-VIN.blogspot.com. Updated every Sunday. So you're also going to want to test drive one of these vehicles. There's a lot of local opportunities to test drive. Peninsula Clean Energy has several test drives that are happening. I'm aware of one that's going to take place in San Jose, I think on the 28th of this month. But since we're here in this area, Actera, you might consider Actera's Ride and Drive, which we are conducting as part of National Drive Electric Week on September 22nd at our offices, which are just down the road, about 10 minutes away, from 1 to 4 p.m. We're encouraging, walk-ins will be accepted, but we are encouraging people to pre-register, because if you do, that will double your chance of winning a level 2 home charger valued at $600. So I highly encourage you to come to this event or any one of the other events that are happening, or to ask a friendly EV owner friend if you can test drive their car. You really have to experience it to know what a better ride it is. Oh, I think Jane wants to comment again.
Sorry. And we're going to also have some opportunities in October in various other cities, Palo Alto and likely Sunnyvale, so stay tuned. That's another way to do some of this.
Yes. Nicole just asked me to talk just a tiny bit about the REACH codes. Those are building codes that are going to kind of mandate more energy efficient buildings, and they're coming online very soon. As a result of that, there's really going to be a lot more electric vehicle charging infrastructure that's going to be coming to our area. Also, one more thing about the charging is that as the technology improves, the charging times are going to get faster and faster with the level 3 chargers. And they do say that ultimately it's going to be as fast as charging your car at a gas station. Okay. All right, so we can take just a couple of questions because we're wrapping up. And then the EV ambassadors that you see wearing the black t-shirts, we've got Greg, we have John, we have Henry, who else back there? Jim, Jane. We will be over here taking any additional questions that we have after we wrap up in just the next couple of minutes. But let's just take a couple of questions, and then I'm going to ask you to do a survey. So go ahead.
I just wonder if the PG&E brownouts are going to have any effect on somebody who's using that as a charging mechanism.
You mean in terms of having available power supply? So the utilities are actually aggressively promoting electric vehicles. And they're also thinking about what does that look like for our future. Utilities want to sell electricity. They would rather have you using their electricity than powering a gas-powered car, and so they are building that into their equations. Another question in the very back.
Yeah, I'm a little disappointed that you didn't mention the other electric car.
What's
the
that?
only electric car that has instant charging, namely a fuel cell.
Okay.
And I have one of those, by the way, in the parking lot in case you want to see it. The other advantage is of a fuel cell, if I may for just a second, the state of California will write you a check for $5,000, even if you lease it. And secondly, the manufacturer will give you a debit card with $15,000 in it for all of your fuel for the entire length of your lease, and it's unbelievable. They also pay for all servicing.
Thank you for mentioning fuel cell vehicles because they are also a clean vehicle, and I think Greg is telling me that he wants to actually address that comment.
Sure. So fuel cell vehicles, clean vehicle, great idea. They're certainly out there. They're available. My concern there is you need to have fuel cell charging infrastructure, right? You need to build these locations throughout the Bay Area. How many are in the Bay Area now? How many? About 10 in the Bay Area.
Sold in 2 places in California, in fact, in the United States, only 2 places, Los Angeles and San Francisco area, Bay Area. There's about 20 or 30 stations around Los Angeles, about 10 around here. The problem right now is they ran out of hydrogen. That's a little problem.
Here, you've got the car, you're driving it, that's great. My thought is you can send power to your battery down wires that we see all over the roadway and streets, and it comes to your battery. Whereas with fuel cell, the locations need to be built, and that's
Right. And
bigger thing to do.
It's definitely an option, and thank you for offering to showcase your vehicle afterwards. Okay, so we're actually concluding. We would really, really, really appreciate it if you would take our post-workshop survey. So what you do is you hold your camera phone up to this symbol, and it will pull up online. If you absolutely, absolutely can't do that, we have some hard copies for you to use. And as a thank you for taking our survey, please feel free to come up here and get a free LED light bulb provided by Henry, one of our EV ambassadors. And this feedback is super, super helpful to us, and it helps us improve future workshops. So please, please, please complete this survey. Hopefully you can do it online. If not, then if you really can't access it, then just raise your hand and Sophie, my volunteer, will give you a paper copy that you can fill out. And afterwards, feel free to take your LED light bulb. Thank you very much for your willingness to consider an electric vehicle in your future.
And thank you, Ariane, and all the Actera staff who are here today.